Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Caines, and Ed Mann.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our podcast, Three Devs and a Maybe. Hope you're all good. I'm joined this afternoon. Well, I should introduce myself first of all. I'm Lewis Caines, happy to present this week, and I'm joined by three people, which is a rarity for this podcast. We're normally two or three, but we've actually got four of us this week, which is cool. I'm joined firstly by the ever-present Ed Mann.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing, Ed?
I'm doing good, thank you, sir.
Good. And the magnificent Mickey B.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to go down
Whoa. He got a better introduction than me.
I forgot. You've started doing this thing during the introductions now, and I've kind of remembered halfway through.
I forgive you.
Yeah, I do apologise. How you doing, Mike? You good?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Yeah.
Should I say Batman?
You should, indeed, yeah.
No, I said it.
Don't explain it. Don't explain it. No, I think we should just leave it there.
I think just saying, Batman. That is his name today is Batman. And you don't need to know why, you just need to work it out for yourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, fine. Yeah. And finally, we've got a very special guest that's come on this week. He actually reached out to me recently from another podcast where I was talking about some issues that I've been having with working with some property-based APIs. His name is Matt Davis. Hello, Matt. How you doing?
Hey, yeah, good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks. Thank you very much for coming on. This is your first podcast, is it? Or
it is, yeah.
Okay, cool. Hopefully you're not too nervous.
No, I'll be fine. Sure.
Okay. Have you heard many of these before?
Yeah, I subscribe. I haven't been subscribed for that long actually.
He's our subscriber.
He is the subscriber. Thank you. You're the one that downloads them. Brilliant.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, thank you very much for coming on. We obviously look forward to catching up with you a bit. I don't know if you guys want to do the usual kind of what's everyone been up to kind of thing, or
yeah, can do.
Ed, how are you? What have you been up to?
Oh, now you asked me first. Damn it. It's been really well, actually. Thanks, man. Yeah. What have I been up to recently? Actually, on last Friday, I recorded a podcast with Adam Watham for Full Stack Radio, which was an interesting experience being the guest. Really nervous I was, actually. It was really weird being role reversed. I was like, whoa, this is scary. And that was dropped today, actually. It was dropped probably about half hour ago. So it's fullstackradio.com/episode 40 or 40. And it's talking about Postgres and stuff, so that was interesting.
Did it go well?
I think it did. I'm halfway through listening to it, and I don't sound too stupid yet. I'm sure I will make it up, in the second half of it. But no, it was really interesting and really fun, kind of talking about Postgres and kind of because I've been doing a lot of exploring myself and everything, learning all these bits and bobs, and it's nice to kind of talk to someone about it and really, explore, able to kind of think, oh, actually, okay, I do know a little bit about it now, but yeah, there's still so much with databases and stuff. It's just a whole big world.
Cool. And he's going to start. Is it something that he wants to start working with himself then, or?
Well, I think the idea is that really, obviously you're going from the LAMP stack, which is just, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And, the data persistence store kind of, we really leave it at that, MySQL, because you just want to get the data in. You store the data, you get it out, you do as much in code as possible, and you just get scared of, queries or something, or you do too many queries, and there's always that balance between the two and everything. So, yeah, it's really explaining what Postgres has to offer as opposed to MySQL. And in general, really, actually, it turned out to be quite a nice chat just about, database persistent stores in general, triggers, functions, and how much you load off, you send off to the database to do processing wise and things like that, as opposed to what you do in code and like leaking domain logic and things like that. So no, it's a really interesting chat, and yeah, so I'll put it in the show notes, but yeah.
I'll certainly give that a listen. I'm very much living in the LAMP stack thing that you talked about there. So I'm keen to branch out and look at some of these new things. So maybe Postgres is a good way to go, possibly. You recommend it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm biased to it. This isn't the thing. It was funny. I was talking to Mickey last week, and the way, because he pinged me on Twitter saying, oh, you speak a lot about Postgres. You like it so much. Why, explain why it's better than MySQL. And I was like, crap. That's such a fanboy thing of me to be, if it portrays that I've come off as this fanboy for Postgres, it's like, well, maybe I do at the moment, but MySQL can do MySQL 5.7 has JSON, type, and I think it stores it in JSON-B, so it stores it in an efficient manner. And it can do a lot of the stuff, the niceties like CTEs you don't have, but you can do some kind of things, recursive CTEs and stuff, if you kind of hack around with MySQL and things. But yeah, I mean, they're both kind of, one for one, you can kind of use them, but there are niceties in Postgres, which is really what I came out with it. It was kind of, there's niceties in Postgres that I prefer, that other people may prefer, may, lean towards.
Excellent. Okay, cool. And you working on anything exciting this week, or
this week?
Stuff?
So I was EWOC last week. Engineer of the week. EWOC, yeah, engineer of the week on call. So dealing with bugs and things like that, which was interesting. I'm trying to think. Was there any? There was actually a really interesting one. Actually, I'll talk about quickly. So I did a blog post on it today. So it's how in Postgres, so we're storing for an integer. For the ID, we store it as just an int, which is in Postgres terms, it's not big int, it's just a normal int, so it's 32 bits. And within PHP, so when we're actually passing it in and we're able to, you supply an ID, it was going through and it was validating, yeah, this is an integer, this is fine. And then it was going to the database store, it was going through to Postgres and going, no, sorry, this is out of range and things like that. And it was a bit horrible. We should really validate that before we go all the way to Postgres with it. And the reason why was because PHP, the value, the size of an integer within PHP is dependent on your platform. So it's, either 32 bits or 64 bit. And what I was doing was I just had a little look into how I could validate that an integer could fit into the range of what a 32-bit integer could be, a signed 32-bit integer. And it was really fun. And I was looking through bit masks and things like that. I did the actual solution using filter-var, but then in this blog post, I kind of go into a different way of looking at it, into using bit masks and fun things like that. So it was quite interesting. And talking to Joe Watkins, I was like, is this how PHP stores that, like looking at endiness, like so endiness is kind of this like most significant byte and things like that, which is how essentially how is the integer stored and how it's represented, and talking to Joe about that, which was quite fun.
Awesome. Sounds interesting. How are you, Mick?
Yeah, I am. I'm not too bad. Not too bad. Thank you very much.
What have you been up to?
So pretty much working full time on my big sort of freelance project, which is like a web stats app. So it's kind of, I want to say similar to Google Analytics, because it's not like that kind of scale, but it does a lot of stuff that does, but it also allows you to track like what companies have been on your website, if that information is available. So there's a few sort of like different products like that out there, but sort of making a new product for that based on React and Postgres, Flux, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, still sort of really deep into that. But yeah, really enjoying it, to be honest with you.
Cool. You very busy, or?
Yeah, very, very busy. I mean,
how's the freelance world treating you?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a bit embarrassing, to be honest with you, because I don't even have a website yet, because I'm too busy doing the work I've got.
I didn't have one until 4 months ago.
Well,
it's a fad, the web is, it's never going to go anywhere.
Yeah, but I kind of done everything in the wrong order, but obviously how things happen. But
I think it's better to have work than have a website. Like,
that's true. If you've got the work, then you're doing all right anyway.
That's it, yeah.
Well, yeah, but I have to think about like if the work dries out, and then I really need to advertise quick. So, but no, it's a good problem to have, like you guys say, and yeah, really enjoyed it, and I've really taken the opportunity to learn a lot of stuff, and I really literally set out at the beginning of the project and said, look, what are the best technologies rather than what are the technologies I know, and yeah, like you say, Postgres was one of those things, and. Well,
so you're championing that as well now, then?
Well, I don't know anywhere near enough about it like what Ed does, but so I can only really comment from like a real noob's perspective. But it is really good, and it does seem to deal with scale a lot better for me. But for me, probably because I'm doing it the wrong way, but it does seem like you need to hold its hand a lot more. So certainly in terms of like the way that you're optimizing queries, like okay, I'm going to get absolutely blasted for this, but certainly for me, MySQL seems like you can just leave it a little bit more and it will just kind of work out the better way of doing it. Whereas with Postgres, I've certainly had to like say, oh, this is really dog slow. Let's change the query and do it another way. Whereas I've never really had to do that before. But once that's done, it definitely seems to deal with the scale a lot better. And like Ed correctly says, it's some of the data types that it just supports out the box, like your IP addresses and that kind of stuff, which was really crucial in my project is really nice. And like, yeah, again, it's got JSON now in MySQL, but we've had that in Postgres for much longer. IP addresses, are they supported in MySQL in the latest version?
No, so it's funny with data types in MySQL. They don't even have Boolean yet, or it doesn't have Boolean. Again, I'm not on. I sound like I'm on a side here, But yeah, so it doesn't have it. You still have to treat like a tiny int. A Boolean is an alias to a tiny int.
Cool.
So yeah, really busy.
All good otherwise. So anyway, Matt, how are you doing?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks.
I just he's been there sat patiently for 10 minutes. We haven't said anything yet. So just to give a bit of a backstory, I guess. The company where I work, we do a lot of websites. We've talked about this on a couple of shows, but to anyone that's new, we a lot of the websites that we build are for property-based companies. And a big website that I did recently used the Vibra API, which, as we'll discuss, I think Matt's had some involvement with. And the project that I'm on now is going to be working with the Zoopla Property Group API and Rightmove and stuff like that. And again, Matt's had some interactions with these, so it'll be interesting to see his thoughts on that. But Matt, how did you kind of get into programming in the first place? What's your story?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. I actually went to uni to do music, so I worked on cruise ships for a few years. And
on cruise ships?
Wow. Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I was playing drums, I was touring for a while. And basically, yeah, I mean, it's something I've always been interested in. It's something that I've always, dabbled with. And when I sort of had enough touring, I decided I needed to get a proper job.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was just a natural sort of progression to go into that. And
so how many years ago was that then?
That's actually not that long ago. We're sort of talking 2009, so 7 years ago.
So 7 years ago, brilliant. And how did you sort of get into it then? Did you go into college, or were you self-taught, or what did you?
Yeah, one of my friends had a company that was doing development work for like Channel 4 and Learn Direct and stuff like that. So I went and worked for him for a summer, just to learn, really. So yeah, I did that, and then went straight into an agency for a while.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just moved some more.
Tried out a few different places.
Yeah, definitely. Just going to conferences and learning and reading everything I could and trying stuff out, and then ended up where I am now, working for a company that does estate agent software.
Yeah, this is very, very podcast specific at the moment. So, are you purely a PHP developer then? What sort of things do you work with?
Yeah, I mean, where I am at the moment, they've got a Laravel stack. So they've got quite a lot of legacy code, but that's all wrapped within a Laravel project.
Yeah.
And then sort of any new code gets written in Laravel. Got a couple of microservices, written in Lumen and Laravel that I sort of worked on. Yeah, I mean, I did my Symfony certification a couple of years ago. So yeah, I mean, Symfony and Laravel, really, they're the main things that I've been working with over the last couple of years.
Cool. Symfony certification.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Ed, have you seen that? Are you aware of that? Or have you done that? Or
yeah, no, that they do. How did you found them? Like, did you do these? It was Symfony 2, I'm guessing, certification.
Yeah, it was the 2.3 version.
Now, and how do you find that then? Do you find it has helped, like, for learning, or kind of knowing, that you've got that piece of paper that helps job prospects and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely helped, to be honest. I mean, there's no revision guide, or at least there wasn't back then. I think there is now.
It's kind of, you left your own devices thinking, crap, what are they actually going to ask?
Yeah, definitely. It's like, just read the docs as much as you can.
Yeah.
And try stuff out. So yeah, I mean, I went and did that, and obviously, passed. But yeah, it definitely helped at least getting a foot in the door in some places, for that initial conversation.
That's brilliant. Because it's funny, because I don't know whether Laravel may go down that route eventually. I don't know whether they're on the same, because Symfony's obviously like the Zens and they've got kind of the corporate, when you look at Java and things like that, you've got Spring and all that, and they've got certifications for those, I'm guessing. And then Symfony's on that level if you compare it with PHP. But I don't know. I don't know whether that, I don't know. Have you heard of any like certifications or anything coming around in Laravel?
I haven't heard of anything. But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't go down that route. No,
Is the Symfony certification, is that pretty much purely about just Symfony then, or is it kind of general programming, or?
It's pretty much exclusively Symfony, so it doesn't even go into things like Doctrine or Propel or anything like that. It's mostly to do with the framework and some stuff.
Oh, cool! That's interesting. I'll be interested to maybe have a little look at that. I've kind of dabbled with Symfony, but I'm primarily Laravel now. Although I know obviously that's heavily built on Symfony. So, are you primarily using Laravel now as opposed to Symfony then, or?
Yeah, it's a funny thing really. The last job I worked at, we built everything in Symfony, and that's basically what the company was built on. And then I went here not knowing any Laravel at all. But yeah, it's really cool. I know, initially when I looked at it, I was like, oh man, the static methods all over the place. It's horrible.
The facade, there you go. Someone had to bring up that word, didn't they? Someone did.
I was trying to avoid that one.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, actually sort of getting in there and using it has kind of changed my opinion.
How do you find it then to Symfony? Would you still prefer Symfony over it, or has Laravel won you over?
I think it depends what you're writing. Yeah, I guess Laravel, you can get some stuff out quickly, and it's really good for that. And it's got a lot more stuff bundled, so you've got like all your Q drivers and all that kind of stuff, which are heavily sort of baked into the framework. Whereas with Symfony, you'd either have to pull a bundle in, or
you have to think about it yourself.
Yeah.
With your applications that you're currently writing, like, have you found that there be that like the initial write, and now eventually they started to become more mature, and like how it's coping with that? Because I suppose that's where Symfony comes in. Like sometimes you think, oh, I'm bringing such a big heavyweight thing to the party, but eventually you'll be happy that you had all that infrastructure already.
Yeah, I think it's really helped having all that there, especially like the team that I'm working on at the moment. Sort of moving to Laravel was a big thing for them. They've been in like procedural code for forever, and done some refactoring. So being able to make that shift into like OOP and stuff, I think they found it a lot easier with Laravel because there's a lot more. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm up to at the moment.
Cool. So, what's your sort of day-to-day role at the moment then? What kind of things are you actually actively doing?
At the moment, I'm implementing a property feed. So we just did the Zoopla real-time feed a couple of months ago. And we're actually owned by another company that's got a few different software solutions. So they're moving all their feed processing to like a central service. So we're currently migrating our portal sending stuff to send to like the central service rather than us handling those ourselves. So
yeah, the Zoopla Property Group API, the real-time listings.
No. So it's funny.
There seems to be quite a few sort of different options.
Yeah, as a platform, we send to something like 150 different portals, and Zoopla is one of those.
Yeah.
Whereas the group feed is now going to be responsible for distributing our data to those different portals. So we're currently writing the integration with that central group feed that will then just distribute to Zoopla and RabbitMQ and everybody.
Well, that's pretty cool. And how are you finding it? Or is it all kind of... Well, it must be a minefield apart from anything else. I know through just reading through the documentation and stuff like that, it looks like it's very, very heavily involved. There's a lot to kind of consider.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of planning and stuff.
I think because we're also sending to so many different portals, the differences between them become really important. So we've had to do quite a lot of planning.
Which other portals are you dealing? Because I've got to deal with Zoopla, Prime Location, and RabbitMQ. Those are the three main ones that I've got to do. But you're writing for ones other than those, are you?
Yeah, so we do like Zoopla, RabbitMQ, On the Market, Prime Location. There's probably like hundreds that nobody's ever heard of.
I can only imagine. Yeah, they're constantly evolving, aren't they? So what you're doing is basically writing tools for people like me to be able to hook into and as you say, distribute out to all of these.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really a public facing thing. I mean, we sell the software that they use in estate agents. It's like a cloud hosted solution, software as a service solution. So, an estate agent will sign up to our product, and then they can choose to send to all these different portals themselves and don't have to deal with, the technicalities of it. Just put some data in and it appears on Rightmove or Zoopla.
Okay, that's cool. Me and Ed, we've had a bit of a play around with some of it, haven't we, Ed? And it's been interesting so far.
They're all very different.
Yeah.
Different varying in documentation, different variants of a lot of different things that, relate into them. But I think that's the beauty of APIs. I think, it's the barrier to entry is very low with an API. And then, everyone has their own way of doing it. And then that's when documentation becomes so vital. But when people don't provide documentation, then you just want to cry.
Do you think there should be some sort of like standardization though of APIs? Like you say,
Well, there's standardization to formats and things like that, where you've got the hypermedia API kind of thing. But the trouble is that APIs are so, specific to that problem. But I suppose, there could be I don't know, is there a standardization of like formats for properties? I don't know. Is there, I know that because you can get like JSON schemas and things like that with the standardization on it and XML.
I guess that's maybe what that's trying to solve. This is the first time that I'll be working with that as well. So, I don't really know what to expect with that, but they provide a zip file with the schemas and stuff and what you need to do. And looking at it looks like it should all be alright, but it just looks like there's a lot of it. And it specifies that some bits are required and some bits aren't. But I guess until I start getting my hands dirty with it, that's when I'll kind of begin to realise what it's actually like. So
so one of the things we did, because obviously we've got this fragmentation of where each portal has got different requirements, we actually built our own internal API schema that requires the data that we know we've always got.
Yeah,
there's like a core set of data that we always send to it, and from there we've written like adapters and mappers and things that'll translate that format into each of the different portal formats.
Yeah.
Which has been pretty useful, because actually in our product we only have to deal with one API schema, and then it's that service's job to essentially say, okay, well, I know how to translate this into Zoopla's format, or I know how to translate that into Rightmove's format.
You take all those feeds and you can like normalize it into your own structure that you're only playing with that one. That's really, that's nice. And what about like if they, like when they upgrade their versions of the APIs and stuff, do you then have to then follow suit and then upgrade, like the way there's adapters and everything?
Rightmove are literally, they're launching in their latest one in July, aren't they? So I guess that's something that you guys are looking at the moment, is it?
Yeah, definitely. That's the nice thing about what we've got, is that we don't actually touch any of the calling code.
Yeah.
We can literally just upgrade one of the portals, within a couple of hours, and it's live, and we're using the new format, which is cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's excellent. So going right back to the beginning, how much of an involvement have you had? Have you been working with it from the start then, or is this something that you pretty much built yourself, or are you with a team building it, or?
Yeah, we've got a team. I sort of led the project to build our internal service, and then to do that mapping into the different formats. And we've only sort of implemented two different formats at the moment, because we've got all the legacy code that sends to all the other portals. So we're trying to incrementally move each portal over to the service, sort of one at a time, make sure it works, launch it for a few weeks to make sure we've got no errors, and then move on to the next one. So it's been a gradual thing. But
what sort of challenges have you come across on the way with them? How's it kind of been? Has it all been fairly straightforward, or have they all presented their own kind of individual issues, or?
Yeah, so with the Zoopla one, I know you spoke in the last podcast about the TLS issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had exactly the same thing, and I blew off the face trying to sort that out. And I did exactly the same thing as you. I ended up running Laravel Homestead.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah, I felt like ramming my head against the table.
How do you test all these things? Because you need to test like the infrastructure to make sure it's working, communicating with the APIs. But like with your test suite, do you always hit their APIs, external APIs, or do you mock those?
We generally actually hit their APIs. They've usually all got sort of test platforms. So you'll get like a sandbox area on their site.
You just perform like an integration functional test on it to be able to always get the response back and then work through there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some instances where we've mocked different responses that we know we're expecting. So things like errors, we know what their schema is for an error response. So it's pointless hitting their API and getting an actual error. We know what that's going to look like.
And like logging it and everything like that, because it must be interesting because you're obviously very reliant on these external APIs and making sure that, I suppose, like, yeah, how do you go about logging these things? Like, is it very much a lot of logging for responses, like storing the responses exactly how they've come back so you can go back and work from that, or?
Yeah, exactly that. We store the incoming JSON schema, JSON data that we sent to our internal API. We store the translated format that we send out to the portal, and then we store any response that we get back in. So we've got full traceability through that, and it's all queued as well. So we also know like how many attempts it took.
And how are you doing the queuing? Is that through Laravel?
Yeah, we've just used the built-in Laravel stuff.
And what driver have you used? Is it?
We actually used a third-party RabbitMQ driver.
Okay, and how are you finding that?
It's actually really cool. It just works.
I think that's a nice thing, though, isn't it? I mean, things that just work, and you don't really have to think about them. You can just be like asynchronously put this on the queue and get the work done.
That's the nice thing about the Laravel stuff, where you can literally just say, use queuable, and it gets put on the queue for you. It does delayed jobs. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So with some portals, you have to delay sending it to the portal because you're sending it to other portals first. So there's all these like rules around, if it's on this portal, you have to wait 24 hours to send it to this portal.
Oh man, that must be
Yeah.
so and that deals with it all for you then. All these rules you're able to put in place. And then,
absolutely.
Brilliant. And then like working out like current status of those queues and stuff. Like, does Laravel provide you with a good what's currently going on with all of the queues and the jobs in there? Or do you have to do a lot of like stats, like like logging yourself? And
yeah, we do a lot of logging ourselves. Generally, we don't really touch the servers once they're set up and running. So I think we've got 8 workers or something running the actual queue jobs. And
is this all on one single box, or do you spread out between?
Yeah, we've got quite a few different nodes, which are obviously all load balanced, and then a few boxes that are running the workers.
Because I suppose because you're doing all these HTTP requests, there's a lot of, I suppose, a bottleneck there. A bottleneck is actually those requests. So you do want to spread them between a lot of different workers and different boxes. Do you run do you look after the hardware in house, or do you have like a VPS, or how do you work with kind of the servers?
Yeah, so we've got a DevOps team that handle all of that.
So that must be nice. Just let them deal with it.
Definitely. We did have an issue with the Laravel Queue workers that they would just randomly die sometimes, but they didn't die completely. So
lovely.
They were just hung and frozen, and we couldn't for the life of us work out what was going on. We still don't know what was going on.
So you've got because I haven't actually used the Laravel Queue thing. So Laravel Queues is an abstraction on top of, I suppose, any of these different ones. You got Beanstalk, and you can have, and then so RabbitMQ is, you've chosen that. Like, was there a vested thing to why you chose that, like a reason, or was it just because it was one of the better ones you could see at the time?
Basically, we already had some RabbitMQ stuff going on.
Oh, brilliant! That works been well, yeah.
So we didn't have to install any new stuff. We already had servers set up running queues.
I was just wondering, maybe, just curiously, I wonder if you've got some sort of race condition there, because I know with Laravel's queue system, I think if you get an exception, it will retry it, is it 3 times or something?
Yeah, you can set that on the worker. There's a flag that says how many times to try it.
Yeah. So I was thinking maybe it could possibly fail the first time if it was waiting for something else, and then in theory it could then work the third time or something, which would be a nightmare to debug.
Yeah. So what we do is every time it pulls a job from the queue, we're actually pulling the data for that job for that property,
right,
in its current state at that point in time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So even if we had a job that was delayed, but then another job for that property later on,
you're always using the most up-to-date information.
Yeah.
And how do you design queuable work? Because it is a different way of thinking, isn't it? That this is a delayed action that's going to happen at any time, and you can't. It's not just within the request of say a web request.
These are different to cron jobs. Obviously, this isn't something that I've done before either. But I'm interested to hear about this. These when you say jobs and stuff, you're not talking about the same kind of idea as cron jobs. This is a completely different thing, is it?
Well, you can kind of think of it as cron jobs. The idea. I mean, the nice. So you got the simplest way is to have a cron job running, which happens say every minute. You're just going to pull off something because you've got maybe have a queue within your database system, which has a list of these are currently this is my queue essentially, and it's have you processed this action or whatever, and maybe you'll pull one off there, pop one off there, and it'd be okay. Do this work and then set the process that time, and then you've done that bit, and every minute, it will pick out 100 of them or however many it has and do that work. So you can consider that to be just a very simple queue. And then obviously you get into the RabbitMQ stuff, which is a far better way of doing it, a far more, it's dealing with a lot of different problems, allows you to expand, and you have a distributed store. I mean, with RabbitMQ, I guess that it's handling the data persistent, working out when you put it onto the queue, it's handling the storage of what's currently on the queue, how to distribute it, and how to distribute it between nodes and things like that, as opposed to having to have an external database handle that work.
Yeah, absolutely. The system that this replaces was working exactly as you say. We had a cron job that was running every 5 minutes, pulling stuff off a MySQL table. And
it does work remarkably well for what I mean, that's the funny thing, because it doesn't seem like such a kind of simple solution, but it works very well. But you do get to a scale that when you do really want to know, I mean, retries and things like this, all this stuff comes out of the box with something like a RabbitMQ.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we kind of had to shift our thinking in, was that what you were saying before, Mike, where you could get that race condition.
Yeah.
What they were doing before is they were pulling something off the MySQL table and setting a flag on it to say that it was processing. And then if that was successful, it would delete any jobs with that property ID from the queue. Now, obviously, when you're doing something like RabbitMQ, you just can't do that. So we had to sort of think, what do we do in this situation? And that's what we came up with. Pull the data at the point where the job's processed.
And do you have any actions that are that I guess happening once? Are there actions that could cause issues being run? Say I push to that property twice, and I push that to the queue. And if it happens the first time, that's fine. But if it happens a second time, there's an issue. Or do you design it in a way that it can happen? You can push it as many times as you want. It doesn't matter. It's going to cause the same state, the idempotency almost.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we're pulling that data straight away and pushing the current state of the property, it doesn't matter.
And any side effects and things like that, like sending out emails and things. I don't know whether that's kind of things that you would do that you've done on queue jobs, or is it very much just pulling the data and then storing it within your data store?
Yeah, so we handle all our emails and stuff like that separately. So it doesn't matter if we send the same property to Zoopla 40 times, in the space of 10 minutes. It doesn't really matter. Obviously, that would require a user to make 40 changes to it.
and are you actually using RabbitMQ for your emails as well, or are you using a different solution?
Yeah, we're actually using SendGrid. They're not actually queued at the moment. So we've got a little service that we wrote, and we literally just make a request to it and hope that it works for most of the emails, because a lot of them aren't important. The things that are important are queued. We retry them, but there's a lot of stuff that's they're just information emails. It doesn't matter if they get there or not.
Yeah. So is the queuing? Are you using that specifically because you're working with so many portals then, or or just as part of your normal workflow anyway, or is it a really important part of what you're doing then?
I think the scalability is quite important. We're probably handling somewhere in the region of maybe 100,000 properties a day.
Wow, yeah.
So just being able to scale up as and when we need to.
Yeah, so
it's been really important.
Yeah, would this be something that you recommend that I do then as I start working with this? Maybe not to the same scale. Can I get away with not doing it, do you think? Or
I guess it depends how busy the site you're writing is.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure at this point. I don't know the company that we're writing it for. A lot of its properties are based in one specific point in London, so I can't imagine it's going to be massively popular like that. And I don't think they're going to be advertising any more than maybe 40, 50 properties at a time. So possibly not.
The nice thing with Laravel as well is that if you did decide you wanted to queue those at a later point, it's just adding a trait to the class.
Literally just bring the trait in and it just does it all.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I know it sounds mad to say that, doesn't it? Just bring in the trait and it will do it. Okay, fine. I'll do that.
Have you found like any limitations with Laravel's queuing system, like from your implementations that you're currently writing?
We haven't really hit any problems. Sometimes it'd be nice to not, when you're writing the workers for the code, sometimes it'd be nice to be able to have them external to the code base. Generally, when you put something in the queue in Laravel, it serializes the name of the handler class, so like the full namespace, which means that generally your worker processes need to actually clone the full.
And they need the whole repo down, so you're going to have separate. So if you've got 8 workers, you need those 8 repos need to be on those because that must mean like a deployment, not nightmare, but a bit of a pain, because then bringing them all down, making sure they're all in sync.
Yeah. I guess, you could get around it. You could just read the job manually and, have a look what class it was going to run and run something else. But then you don't get the niceties of, the deserialization automatically and things like that. So I guess it's a trade-off.
I've got a little thing just to ask, if you don't mind. With OAuth, do you think that's the best system? Do you think it's secure? Like, how do you manage the security with that? I guess I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, all the different authentication systems that you use, like which is the most interesting, and it's OAuth.
I'm guessing they're mainly OAuth now, right? The ones you're using.
This is going to sound really bad. Our internal APIs don't have any authentication or anything on them.
Okay.
Because we've got complete control over the infrastructure, they're completely locked down.
Nobody else can access it in any way, basically. Yeah. Okay.
They're all on our own private networks. That don't really have any external connectivity.
Sure. Yeah.
We're pretty lucky that we don't really have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I was going to do that, I'd probably use, OAuth, maybe JSON Web Tokens, something like that.
Yeah.
So
that's also the nice thing about Laravel 5.2. It's all built in out of the box.
Yeah, that is true. Actually, yeah. One thing I've been using recently is Lumen. Because I've also had to build my own kind of internal. Well, it's not even an internal API; it's used for both, really. But sort of created my own OAuth server. I say created my own. I used someone else's library, but I've done that, and then. But it was just tackling all the security issues for me was a bit of a nightmare, and a lot of these things and obviously for HTTPS and stuff, then a lot of things are covered for you, but still the idea of some things like the exposure was pretty scary, and then so I started looking at things like proxies and that kind of thing. But I do find Lumen is fantastic, but then you start all the advantages you get with the speed. Then you lose some of the really nice things you get with Laravel, like Eloquent, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it is, again, Taylor's delivered there. I think Lumen is really, really good.
Yeah. So going back to our sort of email communication service, I wrote that in Lumen when it had just been released.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can boot Eloquent.
Yes, you can. I did actually. I try not to use it where possible, especially if I know something's going to be quite a large volume of data. But if it's simple things I love the first or create method. which is really nice. So things like that are, quick wins. Quite nice to have back in.
I did this really weird thing where I'd just been reading the DDD and PHP book.
Yeah.
So we're using Eloquent, but I'm actually mapping that to like value objects when it comes out of the database.
Right. Okay.
How are you finding that, kind of like using the active record pattern, kind of hiding that, masquerading it with a repository and these simple value objects?
Yeah, it was interesting. I'm not sure I'd bother. It makes some things really, really tricky. Because essentially you're giving these value objects and then converting them to a database table anyway. So
I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, it is how much you want to map to the domain. I mean, that's when doctoring comes in quite handy, because you can it does like a unit of work, and you can change the the value, the entities, and then be like, okay, now persist this, and it knows what to do. But if you're still using active record under the hood, you kind of you do lose some of the nice things that active record can provide you, and maybe it does muddle the design in some regard.
Definitely. I mean, we ended up with a table that had got every single property of an email object, and some of that was serialized JSON. So like the messages, obviously we got multi-part messages where we got text and HTML parts, and we serialized those as a JSON object in the database, which in hindsight I probably wouldn't do again. But yeah, when you're pulling that out, you've then got to go through that deserialization process to get some nice value objects back. I'm just not convinced it's always worth the efforts.
No, it is. Yeah, I mean, it is so dependent on what you're what you're doing it for, and as you say, in some cases it can be used. Actually, do I really want to use this? Is it really giving me value?
Yeah. So,
but it's a good learning exercise, nonetheless.
Yeah, I think that was the thing. Really, I'd just been reading the book, and I just wanted to try it.
Absolutely, I understand completely where you come from there.
Cool.
Okay, so I asked this question to Ed this morning, and you guys might have seen this website before, you may not. In fact, I haven't got the domain. Ed, what's the domain again? Was it lingscars.com?
I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but go to lingscars.com.
It's the most amazing website in the world ever.
It really is.
Whoa, I forgot the sound was on there. Sorry, but okay, so I was talking to Ed about this morning. Like this, I don't know if you guys know the background of this lady. She was on Dragon's Den. Anyway, yeah, so I kind of get I beat myself up now and again, and I think have I built this website the best way? Have I used the right technologies? Blah, blah, blah. And just the other day I was thinking, I've used React, but in some ways I feel like that slowed my development down, because I could have done this quicker if I was using jQuery, even though I know actually I have done it the better way of doing it. But, do you judge the website on the code that's behind it, or the functionality at the end and how the user perceives it? And like I said, this website is hugely successful. And I was using it the other day. I was looking at cars, and I could get to anything I wanted to within 1-2 clicks. I could do everything I wanted to do really quickly. Yes, my eyes were bleeding, but in terms of the functionality, it actually just works brilliantly well.
Yeah, when you said that to me, I can't deny that it does. I mean, this is the thing; it does solve the problem of what you're trying to do at that place. Also, if you view source, the ASCII comment art is amazing. I'll leave what it is to a surprise to the audience. But I do agree with you that I mean, this is the thing where using all the latest technology and stuff is great, but sometimes it's not the way you do the solution; it's the solution itself. The actual solving the problem. It's fine.
You say you're not using jQuery much anymore. It's my bread and butter. I use it on everything, and I'm so comfortable with it. And like Mike says, I know I can do stuff so quickly with it, and I haven't often got the luxury of time. So it depends on what it is. I mean, there are certain things like on the estate office side that I did with searching properties and interactive forms and stuff like that React did add value to it. But with a lot of kind of more basic stuff, I just use jQuery. But there seems to be a consensus out now that don't use that anymore.
I think it all depends as well. jQuery came around at a time where we had a lot of browser fragmentation, and it was great because it was normalizing that and providing you a very nice API for dealing with these things. And it also added out of the box all this animation stuff. It was better than Moo tools. It was better than Prototype, which completely destroyed the prototype of all these objects and stuff. So, uncluttering. But then things like the query selector came out, and the JavaScript, kind of vanilla JavaScript, became nicer and became more reliable. And now it's like, well, do you really need all the weight that jQuery provides? Like, do I need all like the animation stuff? And I'm sure you can do custom builds with jQuery that will only give you the bits you need. But then I think to myself, what do I need from jQuery? Like, the ability to add event listeners now really is normalized throughout all of the common browsers now. And so, yeah, it depends. If you're targeting still older browsers, then it's great. And if you're familiar with it, it's great as well. But you can now do a lot more with jQuery. It's nice that JavaScript's kind of caught up, and said, look, I can do this now. I can get things by class name and things like that easily.
What do you, My Builder then, what's their policy on browser support and stuff? Where
So we have a supported browser list, which is like essentially we work out what browsers have been visiting the site the most, and in a space of time and stuff, and we will then drop, like say, well, and it's also vested, like kind of it's a decision on like feature as well as like, do we care that maybe like the admin interface, we don't care that that every user on the admin side has to be using like a latest browser. That's fine. Like, but then maybe on the client side, public facing homeowner side, it's like, well, maybe we do want to support IE9. But we typically will say no, we've dropped it now. We say like IE9 no, IE10. I think we're now on supporting IE11. I don't know whether we support partially IE10, but
definitely not IE8 then.
No. But so this is the thing. Like, it depends on your use case as well, and jQuery still does a good job of that. But I would say now maybe a good time to use polyfills instead. Which will provide you with things like recently we added the polyfill, the class list polyfill, which allows you on HTML elements within JavaScript to access the class list and be able to manipulate it and easily do things. Again, do things that you could do in jQuery. And, so I want to do this in real JavaScript, and it's, a simple polyfill that you can add. And there's that, you may not need jQuery.com, I think it is, or whatever it's called. And it will show you the alternatives from jQuery to just native JavaScript. And I think then you're going to learn more of what JavaScript is if you just use JavaScript if you can.
Do you not ever get into that situation though, Ed, where you're pulling in, 10 different polyfills and actually
you see, that's the thing, yeah, and it's a compromise as well, because if you are going to be, in the case of this, so the only thing that we're polyfilling is class list because IE9 doesn't support it. But if you were going to be using things such that are so, like if you're going to have to completely polyfill the whole world to get, if I support IE9, and I always support IE9, I think then I would probably say, and it was all cases, or IE8 or whatever, I would say maybe jQuery is the best way to go still, because it will deal with those problems. But I think it's jQuery 2 doesn't support IE7 and down. I don't know whether that's correct. I know it doesn't support IE6. I know that they're slowly like deprecating themselves of what they support. But so it is, again, it's working out what you really need. And like, the polyfills, like, do I want to use these things? Like, the only ones I can see that are very valuable are like Query Selector, which is amazing because that allows you to do the nice fluent things that you do with jQuery, which is like, just go get me that the class, of that and things like that. And then stuff like Class List, which allows you to work out class-based stuff. All of the things such as event handling and stuff can be done using just native JavaScript.
So are you using native JavaScript at My Builder?
Yeah, so we were slowly going through, like moving from jQuery away from that, because the sending down the payload that you send down for jQuery just to maybe use like a fraction of it is just too much, really. Like if I'm bringing down everything, which is all like all the fading in, fading out, and all this funky stuff, and when really it's just like I need a very simple, concise, this is a JavaScript thing. As long as it works on the browsers we support now, that's fine.
Well, I've just been looking at learning Vue.js.
Very big in Laravel community that at the moment, isn't it? I haven't used that yet. Yeah. What's that doing differently then? What's the actual aim of it?
It's more like Angular. So obviously you've got your two-way binding and things like that. But it seems a lot more lightweight than jQuery, and it's kind of the same thing where if you need some functionality, you can pull that in via a plugin.
That doesn't sound too bad. So many different options, aren't there?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The front end has become just exponentially harder and more confusing.
Is Angular 2 available now? I
think it is available, yeah. And everyone who learned Angular 1 is really upset.
Yeah, because it's completely different, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I quite like React. I'm kind of bit of jQuery, bit of React. Those are the main two that I'll mess around with at the moment. But maybe maybe down the line I'll have a look at something else and see what they offer. It's just finding the time, isn't it, to actually properly experiment with these things.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah. What are you using, Mike? Mainly just React and jQuery as well, or what was your thought on what you said? I mean, how are you managing that?
So I basically I decided I didn't want to use jQuery, and I ended up doing something stupid. I ended up just using it for like my Ajax calls, and I was like, "This is crazy." Took it all out because I found that I started looking at like my asset sizes and stuff, and they were huge, and I wanted to get them down. I think I've banged on it a bit before, but I listened to a really good talk about how Amazon said that every like 100 milliseconds cost them like X amount of money, like huge amounts of money. And that inspired me. So everything I've tried to do, like talking about Lumen before, everything I've tried to do is about just trying to speed everything up and just cut off all the fat and the flesh where I can do it. So I'm down to the bone. And so I got rid of it. And I really like React, and then I started using Flux as well to give it some more structure. And I think it's really good. But I actually was saying to Ed this morning, I made like was it a £20 bet with you?
Yes.
But, I
20
think
solid pounds.
and I'm going to put it on the podcast now as proof, but I think in 5 years' time, certainly is what React is right now, I think it will be looked on as very bad. And I can't really justify why at the minute, but I just honestly do. I think things will be a lot better.
Because it's so different, or?
I really can't put my finger on it at the moment. I think certainly a lot of it will probably be to do with the fact that I'm probably doing it wrong, but the idea that I do everything as a component, even if that component is only ever used once, that to me doesn't quite sit well for me. But I guess really, if you really absolutely know that you're only use that component once, you don't really need to do it as a component. You could just do it on the fly. But I don't know. It's just my
one thing I found with React is that you can very easily write way much more than you need to.
Yeah.
When you're trying to split all the components down and stuff like that, you can find that suddenly you're 5 or 6 files deep, and it's is that really necessary?
Yeah. I think
it's just designing it, isn't it, up front, like, and learning how the weighing up between the properties and the state of a component, and like how you want to break up a problem. As you say, you can break it up too much. It's like any OO kind of concept. I can break these things up too much. Or maybe I'm going down the wrong path with it in working out the optimum way at this current time, what, the problem needs. Yeah.
So by no means was that a criticism of React. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I just think in 5 years' time, I think it would look very, very different in my mind. But
It's so diverse now anyway, though, isn't it? In 5 years' time, there'll probably be another 50 different options.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Which is good. But yeah, like you say, it's challenging for like us trying to learn them all. But yeah, it's a good challenge to have.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we're kind of at our hour now. Matt, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Or
no, but thanks for letting me come on.
Thanks for coming on. Yeah,
thanks for coming on. That's been really interesting to pick your brain on that stuff. No doubt we'll be in touch again. So
yeah, definitely.
Excellent. And you're more than welcome to come on and ramble with us anytime you want. Hopefully, it hasn't been too what's the word? Too rambly.
Yeah. And everyone should listen to Ed's podcast on Full Stack Radio.
I'm going to do that now.
It's really good. I listened to about 5 minutes, but it sounded good. So
I just got a notification on Overcast.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Dun. Uh-oh.
Scale of 1 to 10, Ed. How happy were you with it?
I've only listened to half. I'm all right. I think it's all right. I hope it's all right.
That's about as much self-praise as you ever give yourself.
Yeah.
It was all right.
It was all right. Cool.
I'll let you guys be the judge of it,
Oh, I can be pretty harsh.
I hated it. Absolutely hated it.
Yeah, but I won't tell just you. I'll tweet it so everyone
please
see
do.
my opinion. Yeah.
Cool. The way we do it now.
All right, cool. Okay, shall we wrap it up there then?
Go for it, man.
Awesome. Well, good to see you all, guys. Or good chatting with you. Thanks again, Matt, for coming on and for chatting with us. And hope everyone has a good rest of week. And yeah.
Brilliant.
I can't think of anything else to add to that.
You are going to say like my normal line, which is, it's been a really good show. It's been a great show. And again, thinking, I shouldn't say that because I feel big-headed saying that. And then
it's been the most.
It's been a show.
I'll tell you what, it's been the best podcast we've done today.
Boom. Yeah. I like it.
There you go.
All right then, guys. Good speaking to you.
Cheers, guys. Take care. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3devsandamaybe.